This is Tim Talks About Everything, and today I'm going to talk about Monument Valley and the guide that we had, the Navajo guide that we had when we went there. Now, I'm not opposed to renting a Jeep and heading off by myself. I mean, that's what we did in Death Valley. I also am not opposed to trying to take like a Camry off-road if the roads are somewhat acceptable. I'm not afraid of that. On this trip, we opted for a guided tour with a Navajo guide for a Monument Valley safari. Our guide was Don Mose, amazing man and had a lot of life experience. Now, we've had guided tours by a lot of people over the years, in Israel, in the United States, in Italy, a lot of places. And I would place this guide up with like the top two that we've ever had. It was so interesting, so many life stories that he told, that there were four of us in our group, and we all decided that as much as we were anticipating going to Monument Valley and taking pictures and seeing the scenery, that he was more interesting, and his life and his person was more fascinating, that he was actually better than Monument Valley itself. He told us about his childhood, about being sent off to boarding school and how they cut his hair and they didn't let him talk Navajo, and they tried to basically take all the Navajo out of him. But his parents, before he left, they said, don't give up your culture. And so what he did was he combined what he learned in boarding school with the Navajo culture and was able to benefit from both. And in fact, he said that that was one of the best experiences of his life. One of the best things that ever happened to him was being sent to boarding school, and the way he was able to retain what was good from his culture and what he received from his parents and grandparents, and also what he received at the boarding school. So he's an amazing man. He was involved in Rosetta Stone. One thing that he did that I thought was fascinating was he talked about his childhood. He talked about what it was like to basically become a man. And you go into the sweat lodge and what that all meant, and you come out, and he sang us his horse song. He talked about the role of the mother and the role of the father, and how the uncle is the heavy in your life as a young Navajo man. He talked about his invitation to go to Moscow and then also to Siberia. And when he met with the people and worked with the translators, how he discovered that the Navajo people have so much in common with the people, the indigenous people in Siberia, and how similar in some ways the language is. We talked about people migrating across the Bering Strait, and I mean, it was just a fascinating conversation. He talked to us about the petroglyphs and what they meant, and he drew pictures of those in the sand, and he explained how the formations were made in Monument Valley itself with sand and water and erosion and wind. It was an educational experience beyond what we ever expected. Don took us to all the good places to take pictures, and he even took some pictures of us with our own equipment so that we would have it later on when we went back to our homes. Now, if you're just trying to save some money and not take a tour, a guided tour, then I get that. I understand that, and I've done that plenty of places. But at the same time, if you're willing to spring for a few more dollars, you're going to get way more, in my opinion, way, way more than what you think. Now, I highly recommend Don, but I don't have anything to compare him with as far as the other Navajo guides. Maybe they're just as good, or maybe they're even better. I don't know. All I know is that he was excellent, and we loved every minute of the time that we spent with him. In fact, I think he extended our tour a little bit. He said, you guys are such good listeners. And he would begin to tell us a little bit more about the Navajo culture. It was such an educational experience, and also he took us to the right places at the right time to get the best light and the best angle, talked all about the movies that were made in Monument Valley, and took us to those locations and explained how things got their names. And it was just an experience that I would recommend for anyone.
Okay, number one, we actually don't even call this Monument Valley. That's the movie company. See this? That means there was an earthquake here at one time. The whole thing shifted up, and that's probably why all of this probably came down. Okay. And when it came down, it created a head of an Indian up there. You see it?
I see it. Yes.
You see it? Yeah. I just toured a family the other day, and she said, "Oh my goodness, it looks like South Dakota out here." I said, "Well, they have to carve out, so we don't have to do that here."